So in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to use the budget segregation feature in GCD. I'm in an existing project, Sulphur Creek, which we've used in a bunch of these tutorials. And one of the key things is that you already have a demo difference calculation done. And a good way to check to see whether or not you have those in your project, you can go to the change detection panel. You can load change detections, and you can see here that there's a whole bunch of different dems of difference that already exist. And so with that, I can go to my budget segregation menu, and I get to select which one of those dems of difference I want to use. And so in this example, I'm going to use this this Bayesian updated spatial coherence filter dem of difference, and I'm going to load a shapefile here. That shapefile has to be of type polygon, and if you try and load a shapefile that does not have a text field in it with the categories for segregation, then it will not allow you to load it. And so we can see that that's gone ahead. I'm going to give ourselves a little room here and show you this feature class that just got added in. I'm going to change the symbology and show you in this description field everything that we've got. And so you can see that I've gone in and classified. You've got point bar development, I've got channel scour, I've got central bar development, these different geomorphic categories of change. And so those are all coming from that description field. So we have to specify that description field here in the inputs. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit calculate and save. And occasionally you will get this error message. If this happens, you can just hit close, and you can come back in. It's a known bug, and try to rerun this. And it may say that this output already exists. You want to override it. We'll go ahead and hit yes. And so we let it go through, and now it's worked here. And so now we're going to focus, instead of on the inputs up here, we're going to focus on what we have to view here in the outputs. So I can look at different elevation change distributions. They can be area or volume. And so you'll see these mass categories. These are the unique categories that ended up in this description field. If we were to open up the attribute table, we would see that those are where those came from, are different categories of change. And so right here I'm looking at bar sculpting. That's the portion of, in this case, volume change that it occupies. And then right here I can see that that bar sculpting has an entirely erosional distribution. I could contrast that with bank erosion. Looks like bank erosion is a tiny little sliver. In this case, it's only 1% of the total erosion area and 1% of the total erosion volume. Contrast that with channel scour, which is a little bit bigger chunk here of the pie. It's contributing 44% of the total erosion volume, but only 4% of the total volume of difference. So there's different ways you can look at all these things. Pool filling, that's a depositional category. And then we got central bar development here, and then the real big one is point bar development. That's the one that stands out, dominating the bulk of the distribution. And again, that's those beige areas here. So I can look at these pie charts in terms of total volume change. I could look at them in terms of area. I could look at them, and this one I'm looking at a depositional category, just in terms of what proportion of the deposition area or deposition volume. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can view these things. You can also turn on a legend if you want to see these different stats. In any of these Z plots, you can always go in, you can save these images out to a file, and you can also zoom in to a portion of these graphs, and you can go ahead and hit unzoom to come back out. So this is the interactive sort of results viewer, so you can take a look at this stuff. This stuff also gets saved out here if we hit browse results. This gets saved out into this location inside this budget segregation folder for that DoD. What gets spit out from the budget segregation are a couple of things. In this class legend summary, it shows us the different categories that we used, so bar sculpting, bank erosion, etc., and then the corresponding numbers, and we see those numbers again in this C1 through C10. Those are the elevation change distributions. If we want to go into any of the individual categories, you'll see this structure duplicated over for each category. So this is bank erosion, this is the aerial and volumetric, not that exciting for these two elevation change distributions. This is for bar sculpting, and what we can see on these is that it's showing in color the portion of the total DoD in gray that is contributed from that category. If we look at the XML file, this gives us an opportunity to look at the tabular stats that we saw in that interactive viewing pane. And so it shows these values both in terms of their numeric values and also as a percent of, in this case, total erosion and percent of total erosion volume versus area here. And then one of the other things that's pretty handy is this class summary XML. And what this does is puts in one file all of those different categories. And so here's all 10 categories. And you can see a summary of everything there. You could, of course, sum these up, and the percents should sum up to 100%. And so that is that's about all I was going to show you. With the budget segregation tool, it's a pretty powerful way of trying to interrogate these DoDs and get more information out of them.